to Mbanga, Yang, and Liob that will link Nigeria to the Cameroonian border. This was a road that was promised to these communities before the 1961 plebiscite, and it was never done. And it is only during this tenure of Bola Ahmed Tinubu that the contract is being awarded. The entire community gathered. We went there, and then I was received at the borders of the Cameroonian borders. So the entire community gathered. The paramount ruler of that community addressed me and said, well, in case you run into the president, please thank him and tell him that this was what we were promised before voting to join Nigeria, because those were the trust territories then. And then nothing was done, but he has done it. And he said, I assure you that as far as we are concerned, our 2027 election is already decided. And the joy I saw in the eyes of these people is something that a zillion word cannot describe. It's indescribable. This was a region that was dominated by treacherous terrain. It took you 6 hours from Gembuch, the headquarters of Sardauna local government, to the area we went to at the Cameroonian border. It's just 1 hour, 30 minutes. By the time the road is done, it's 45 minutes journey. So what brought all this thing about is leadership. If we look at the case of security, I made the point yesterday. I come from the northeast region of this country. I don't know whether you missed it. During the Christmas period, I traveled to Bauchi, of course, to receive the president when he came on a condolence call, and then made my way back to Abuja on the road. From Jos to Abuja, even with the security, the police, the army, they were clearing the road for us. It took us almost 9 hours to get into Abuja. I have never seen this historic kind of traffic to the northeast. You know, Jos is the gateway to the northeast. And then you will ask yourself, why were people commuting to the northeast? For the very first time in about 15 years, I haven't seen that. It means that people are beginning to have faith in whatever the government is doing in terms of improvement of security. Hitherto, people were running from the northeast into the hinterland. But now you could see that during the holidays, people were moving back. So I said, even on the merits, we're not talking about rotational, we're not talking about, oh, it should be south. On the merits, I think a case can be made for President Tinubu to continue.
So was that a vote and a motion moved yesterday that was agreed upon?
Yes.
It was part of the agreement yesterday.
Yes.
But there are those who will say there are fundamental challenges confronting this nation. And there are those who argue that it should be left to the Nigerian people to decide, the voters, to decide whether the fate of President Bola Tinubu. Yes, members of your party can agree to give him the ticket, but yet the mandate of 2027 should be handed into the hands of Nigerians, not to you and your colleagues in that room, to decide whether or not President Bola Tinubu should have a smooth ride. The judgment of whether he has performed well based on the promises made will be in the hands of the voters who will judge at the polls.
Well, Shaun, I agree with you. I'm on all fours with you on this matter. Assuming we are not part of the voters, 2027 is already taken for granted. I believe that should be the case.
So, Dogara, giving his own personal testimony of how people have already concluded that, what if Tinubu has done for them? Even when the record showed that more Nigerians have actually been killed in the last 2.5 years of Tinubu than those killed in the 8 years of Bugaje. Shocking. Yeah. And that is how bad it is. But this is going to be election year, where politicians are going to be boldly telling lies enough that they believe the same victims, the victims of all this terrorism and insecurity, maybe not, they will never see the videos. I don't know. But that's Dogara. And he also went on, by the way, because Sheun asked him, let me see if I can put out. Sheun asked him about the rumor that is being kind of like prepared to take over from or to replace Pretty Man. Okay, and then he responded that, not really. But before I come back to that, right, while we wait for it, give me a sec. While we wait. So Dogara used to be the former Speaker of the House of Representatives in Nigeria. He himself, like others before him, and even those after him, was very much fingered in several kind of corruption, but he never really went to trial by any means to get his own day in court. Say, and when it was around the time they were almost hunting him, he quickly joined APC, just like others too. Then when this theme of who they thought could be used, okay, to change the supposed minds of the people of the Middle Belt or the Christians in the northeast part of Nigeria, they nominated him. Tinubu nominated him. In fact, he actually brought him back to be used for a time like this. Then people started suspecting that this talk of replacing Shettyman, right? Maybe he's actually the one they are preparing. Okay? Something that others are quite really like uncertain about. But here is what he said when she asked him before we go to something else.
Saying the victimization of the Christian communities in this country and the argument, the backdrop of the choice of President Bola Tinubu of a Muslim running mate. And going into 2027, there those who are saying that already the conversation they have started in the APC as to how to balance things out, to not annoy the Trump presidency in America, and to seem to give some kind of balance to the equation that could have also angered a lot of people who think there is no balance in the ticket of Bola Tinubu. And your name has come up. That you could be the running mate to President Bola Tinubu in 2027. How does that come to you?
Well, I think I would have sincerely pleaded with you to leave me out of this. But perhaps let me say something. I think whatever we're doing shouldn't be because we're afraid of anybody breathing down our necks. It should be because it is the right thing to be done. We're talking about running an inclusive government. We're talking about bringing everybody in this country together so that we'll be able to build a nation that works for all of us. So if that is the case, if we're having a discussion about rotation of presidency, there's nothing stopping us from having that discussion as well. Because you see, the truth is that when you're not talking about just northern Christians, you're talking about the Christian faith as a whole. So if you have a Muslim, whether he comes from the north or from the south, let it be that he's representing the Muslim community. And if you have a Christian, wherever he comes from, he covers for the Christian faith. So that gives you the religious balance that we're talking about. But honestly, if we're going to do anything along those lines, it shouldn't be that we are scared, but because as men of it, we believe that God requires of us to do justice, and justice demands that we should balance things. I think that should be our concern.
So APC should consider a Christian running mate in 2027?
It's a discussion, and I'm aware that discussion is taking place now. So at the end of the day, whatever the president decides, ultimately, no nobody who is a serving president has ever lost primaries. So we assume that the president definitely will get the ticket of the party. Ultimately, whatever decisions that he takes, I believe that it is up to him. But if we have overwhelming majority of our people making a case that these things should be balanced, as a Democrat, I sincerely believe that he will listen to it. And particularly for us, Northerners like me and you, I've always insisted that anybody who divides the North along religious lines has actually conquered the North. Come from a family, one of my uncles was even a sheikh. He died in Saudi Arabia. How do you expect me to discriminate against him just because he's a Muslim? and so many communities, so many families, sorry, in the north, in my own part of the north, are like that. So I want to see a situation just like as you raise one issue, my journey to becoming a speaker. I want to see that episode being replayed consistently, so that when anything concerns a Muslim, I don't look at him as a Muslim. I should be able to fight for him, that this is a collective progress as Northerners and as Nigerians. And when Christians on the other side see Muslim brothers defending the rights and privileges of the Christians as if it was
go to Renshi. You all heard him, right? So he's already confirmed it, that it is true. That, yeah, that conversation is kind of like taking place. So yeah, that's all we needed to hear. That is to say, it's completely up to Tinubu if they insist that their strategy of Muslim is still their strategy. Keeps him and stays. But if they are indeed under pressure from among what they said the American team actually told Kalu, but not Kalu directly. What they told Ribadu was that when Ribadu got to Washington, one of the things they asked him was that is Nigeria Islamic country? And Ribadu said no, Nigeria is a secular country. The next question they said the American Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War, except, right? True story, they said when Ribadu got to Washington, after that redesignation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern, all right? So Tinubu sent them as a delegation to go and speak to Trump's team and tell them the true story, the situation of things, so there is no Christian genocide, blah, blah, blah. But the first question they said the American Secretary of War asked them was that is Nigeria an Islamic country? And Ribadu replied that no, Nigeria is not an Islamic country. Right. So then how come you have a Muslim president and vice president in that country? Then Ribadu started kind of trying to explain it. Here you get. But most of what they tried to explain there didn't really stick. And part of that, the impression they were advised to go work on if they want to look good in Donald Trump's book. Something that ordinarily, right, could just be passive, right, until Dogara just confirmed that, yeah, truly, there is conversation around it. There is a massive majority of their people, the Christians in northern Nigeria, who are thinking that this thing should be balanced. And they went on to go and add other gibberish to it that are mostly irrelevant. Because the Muslims in northern Nigeria are also watching the interview, right? They're going to be like, well, if anybody wants to conquer the north, they will try and use religion, this religion, that. What are you talking about? So, Dogara. Meanwhile, from that same northern Nigeria, at the Daily Trust, what do you call it, communique or something, right, where they had their summit. Bugaje, a man who was once part and parcel of those who pushed for this APC at the time, and now is like an elder statesman, so to say. So they had this to say about the Emilokan, which is Tinubu's mantra. Emilokan. Emilokan is actually a nonsense, according to Bugaje. It's a nonsense if Emilokan couldn't really provide stable economy, jobs, security, and what have you. Rather, just the establishment or establishment of terrorism in a grand scale. So let's go listen to what Bugaje had to say, talking about Emilokan.
Thank you very much. Very distinguished excellencies, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I think it's a very important occasion, not only for the celebration of the birthday, but I can see here a collection of Nigeria itself. the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'm so happy that we are all here. I hope before we leave, we can have a consensus of how to fix our country. I will go straight to the problem. The problem, we all are agreed that democracy is receding, democracy is not delivering, and therefore, if we go at this rate, on this trajectory, democracy is not sustainable. Therefore, what exactly are the problems? I think the major problem is that first, the political parties, which are the foundation of democracy, they have no content, they have no conscience, and they have no courage. You look, just take any party. What does it convey to you? Where is the big idea? What is that thing that this party represents in terms of the future of this country? You have collection of big men in parties, but you can't find the big idea. So what is the big idea? What is it that really, because countries that have developed, you have mentioned a few of them, South Korea in the 60s was the second poorest country in the world. Within just 3 decades, it was on the cutting edge of technology because it has developed a big idea that it was pursuing. The same with Japan, the same with Singapore, the same with every country that has made development. Where is that big idea? We have parties, we have big men, but we don't have big idea. And these parties, like I said, they have no content, they have no conscience, they have no courage. The second thing is that the the popular will, which is expressed in electoral processes, has been subverted. It is like INEC is precisely there to rig elections rather than to conduct elections. And therefore, if you cannot conduct elections, you might as well forget about democracy. Because people cannot continue to be fooled. We know what happens. Last election, people were waiting for INEC to address the issues raised. What happened? In the middle of the night, there was an announcement of a result. The country was asleep. And people just disappeared. Do we want to go and repeat the same thing again? So the popular will has to be asserted. It has to be respected. If we are not, then we are not going to have a democracy. The third and very important point, moderator, is the social contract. This, democracy is sustained by a social contract. We are, as citizens, we agree to be law-abiding, we agree to listen to government, we agree to do everything to pay our taxes, precisely because the government has undertaken to provide for our security and for our welfare. And this is very clear in our constitution. Ask yourself today, where is the security? Where is the welfare? Poverty has more than doubled. Insecurity has gone to to levels unprecedented and in fact inconceivable 25 years ago. We have nothing to say that we have gained from democracy. So on what basis should we have government? If we as citizens have obeyed the laws, have paid our taxes, and government cannot protect us, what is the reason for why government is there? Because it has lost. Now, what are the solutions? Very quickly. I think we have to first find a big idea. And this is tied to the issue that have been raised of elite consensus. Where this is the elite of the country. What is our consensus? Where do we want our country to be in 25 years? And what do we need to do to get it there? There is no consensus. Everybody wants his own tribesman, to be president, which is the most stupid idea that I find in the 21st century. Because it's like elites taking turns to destroy their own country. If you ask yourself, the current regime, what is the consensus? It's just talking about my chance, my opportunity. I don't know if my turn, right? So we are taking turns to destroy our country. So the most important step, I think, is to have a consensus. Where do we want this country to be? The second, I think, is to make sure that We have developed metric for measuring. Thank you very much. Very distinguished. Excellent.
I don't want to sit here and reveal all my strategy. I am the first speaker among the three of us running. So they will spy on me. So you will have a limited answer here today. Another day you can bring me back. But that's part of what I do.
Right.
Who did this thing to us? May God forgive all of us.
Right. Right.
Who did this thing to us? May God forgive all of us.
Right. Right.
Amen.